There's another Ren's Playtime Corner with, well, me, you know who I am. I'm not important. Webster style, but start of show is Ren. Ren, how you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Good, good. Now, we've touched on a lot of topics over the past few months. And I think for both you and I, there seems to be one topic that keeps coming back, whether it's in just conversation, whether it's in solicitation, like you informed me the other day, or even if it's in some of my conversations with those in the adult industry, it is polyamory. Um, it, I don't know about you, I'm gonna ask you, does it seem like that there are more and more people who are in polyamorous relationships to you?
I wouldn't say more and more. Honestly, I think it's just based on your environment, to be
Hmm.
honest, because there's still plenty of people that believe in monogamy. Um, but it's like Neo, for example. He's the first person I've seen openly admit that he's polyamorous, a famous person. You
Hmm.
don't see a lot of other people admitting that they polyamorous.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean they're not sleeping around with other people, but they just claim they're in a monogamous relationship, you know. So it's like people practice poly without even knowing that they practice in poly. Um, but to say it's wide range, no, because some people still believe in monogamy. It's territorial to them. Like they don't
Hmm.
want to see the other person being shared, which is totally understandable. So yeah, I mean, it's more of a to me, it's more people just being more honest with themselves than anything. If you honestly cannot just be with one person for your rest of life, that's fine. I mean, I be poly. You don't have to cheat. We in a day and age that we have multiple choices out here for whatever fits your needs. And polyamory is just one of them.
Yeah, I want to say one thing. I understand your point of view, but I would say I would disagree with you. You said something to the effect of a lot of people in polyamorous relationships they only know it. I think that right there they aren't in polyamorous relationships if they don't know it. I think one of the things with polyamorous relationships, at least from what I've learned and when talking to individuals, there's that aspect of awareness and communication there. Like these
Yeah, I said
are,
people practicing poly without even knowing, which
yeah.
means there's a person right now dating someone
Hmm.
and dating multiple people on the side.
Hmm.
They see it as I have a main girlfriend and I
Okay.
just cheat on her. But if you consistently having relationship definition for people to know, it just means connection.
Right.
So you are still in a relationship, regardless if you claiming this person or not claiming this person as your romantical partner. You still in a relationship. So that's what I mean by they practicing poly without even knowing that they
Right.
actually are practicing poly.
Right. I think the first time I'd ever seen anything about polyamory was, the TLC show Sister Wives, and I'm just like, well, before it became what it is and the feces fest that those relationships have now become, it was a very interesting dynamic, to say the least. And it was interesting television, those reality shows of drama. But I think the first time, I didn't think the first time that I actually encountered that in my real life, it was actually a colleague of mine that I work with on another show, and we were at a convention, and we were just talking, and he was just like, "Yeah, I'm going to go see my girlfriend after this," and I'm like, "Mind you, he's married." I'm like, "Huh?" And then he kind of explained, it's like, "Yeah, she has partners too, blah 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 blah." I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, "Okay," and I know he can see my eyes. I'm like, my eye just like my blew my mind because one, I knew him, I know him like that, but then two, it was just it comes out of left field because you're not expecting that whatsoever in a conversation when talking to another married guy and it's like, yeah, I'm going to see my girlfriend, sort of thing. Uh, But as time goes on, has gone on, and I don't know if it's just because of the algorithm or it seems like, much like you said, more and more people are living the truth and living lives that they want to.
Hmm.
I see, at least on TikTok, I would say. Um, I've seen more like polyamory stuff on YouTube, not YouTube, but Instagram, because that tends to get intertwined with a lot of the dating stuff that we've seen over the past year or 2 years or so, in those conversations. But I think on TikTok is where I started to see more and more people, and more so because I, especially in this year, I tried to follow a lot more people in the geek space.
Hmm.
I saw a lot of people talking about they were polyamorous. There's this one mutual I have, and I know she has talked about her journey dating and being polyamorous and having an open relationship with her husband. And it's very insightful. It's especially when you are just, you have a monogamous relationship. There are many, let me phrase that. When you have a monogamous marriage, and I always make that distinction that I personally think there's how you operate in your marriage in a marriage is different from how you operate if girlfriend, boyfriend, just personally speaking.
Hmm.
But to hear these conversations of married people specifically who are polyamorous and to talk about the I won't say issues, but the sort of trials they go through in the process, whether in this woman's case, it's her dating life and her dealing with the emotions of you know, other men, not necessarily her getting attached, but them getting attached. And so it's fascinating as a viewer. And even talking with now the adult stars are probably a bit different, simply because a lot of them were more so, at least a lot of I've talked to, were more so in the lifestyle. But those that do practice what's it, ethical non-monogamy, uh like even they talk about how for them, it brought an openness to their relationship there wasn't before. There was a transparency and communication. And that is something I find really amazing that you would not think that would necessarily be the case, but it seems like it's something that really has to be there for something like that to work.
Yeah, it takes maturity for one, because you
Yeah,
have to be understanding of your partner gonna have needs. Temptation is all around us. Unless you lock them up in the basement, or her in the basement, there's gonna be people that's gonna like you and like him and like your partner. It's just naturally people are attracted to what they like and what they
right,
see. So it's more of just to understand that part. And if a person loves you, they're not gonna go nowhere. Like if they really love you and care about you and want to be with you, they're going to work it out. There's plenty of people in poly relationships for years or open marriages for years, but he knows or she knows that this is my rock. This is my best friend. Why
right,
why would I'm getting everything I need. I get you and I get pleasure when you're not available or whoever not available, and I still get my needs met. So it's just more of like to know you as a person. Are you
right,
really capable and able to do something like that? I'd rather us be poly than you just lying and cheating and being sneaky every day.
right,
That's just my thoughts and opinion on it.
right. I want to go back to something you said earlier about that connection. This is I got a couple years on you in that regard as far as age and we have different life experiences, but this is sort of a conversation I've been having lately. Um, and you talked about connection. And one of the things that I have really, over the past maybe 3, 4 years, have really paid attention to connection. And me personally, I would say I connect with people in different ways. And I'm not saying male or female or even sexual. I mean, just in general, just, basic, like you connect with people in different ways. You don't connect with people in the same way. And
Mhm.
I think part of that too, you go back to that honesty and truth comes from a basic understanding of who you are and what you are, and basically self. And I don't think that honestly many of us have that in really that sort of rich fashion that we think we do. Um, I myself, personally speaking, I would say the past 5, 6 years of my life is when I have personally felt like, okay, this is who I am. This is what I'm about. I am confident in the man that I am. And I could really sit and look at myself and analyze, okay, how I do things, how I connect with people. So I say that to say the whole aspect of polyamory at this point in my life, I totally understand that from a context of if you two are simpatico with it, the guy put that out there, how you could still be married, love your wife or your husband, and how the connections elsewhere don't change it, don't really destroy. And because you would think, oh, you're involved with somebody else, that's going to impact your relationship with your spouse, that's going to take away from them. And when I really realized, especially with a lot of my conversations, that if you are genuine and you're honest and open and transparent, and you genuinely have the support of each other, that other relationship is really a different relationship. You're connecting with that individual or in a totally different way, and maybe even a totally different level from your spouse. And that's maybe a way that you and your spouse just never connected.
Right.
And if you can have an honest conversation like that and really be as transparent, and in my mind, I get how that can work, how a dynamic like
Some
that can
people
work.
don't know, honestly. Some
Yeah,
people just don't know. Some people like are oblivious to the certain things that they see. It's
yeah,
like a person who has a house full of dogs and you walk in, don't have no pets, no dogs, and you just smell dog everywhere. It's like you don't smell that. It smells like wet dog in here every day.
right.
And the owner, like, nah, I don't notice because you living in it every single day and not being self-aware, but somebody on the outside looking in, seeing what's going on, or being more self-aware to point out, like, maybe you should try this. Because if this way isn't working for you, because you keep cheating, you keep lying, you keep being sneaky, maybe you should try this so you could just stop doing all that. Be more open and honest. Like, yeah, girl, I'm about to go on a date with this other person. I'll be back by 2 in the morning, maybe. All right, fine. You told me. You let me know. It is what it is. Okay. It's like you can either accept it or don't accept it. But be honest with yourself. Don't say yes to
Right.
something that you honestly, in your back of your head, in your throat, know you're not about to do. That's another part. People agree to this and honestly do not want to be a part of it.
Well, not even that. I would say they agree to it and cannot really deal with the emotional aspects of it.
Right.
Like that like what I forget, I think it was Carissa Cox I was talking to, and she talked about her and her husband uh being in an open relationship and how she was getting in her feelings with regards to some of the things that were happening. These are things that she had to work through because it was at times a struggle for her and her husband having other partners. And again, we didn't go into great detail, but the fact that she spoke to that and really had to in many sense put her big girl panties on because it was her idea um
Yeah,
for all
people
of this.
get emotional.
Yeah,
Because you polyamory doesn't mean you're not going to be jealous
right.
or it is what I mean. I've been in a poly relationship before and I was cool with it because I knew what it was,
Hmm.
but the other girl wasn't. But she
Right.
agreed to it.
Right.
So I'm like, why did you agree to something in the back of your head you knew was a bad
Right.
idea because you wanted to keep him happy? I,
Or
I
something
get
she
it.
couldn't handle.
It's something she couldn't handle and she wanted to keep him happy. That's just all it was. So it's like, okay, so if this is not what you want, then stop doing it.
Right.
Because you're not driving yourself insane, knowing what's going on.
Right.
But in the back of your head, you have self-doubt of what if, maybe, when, where, it's terrible.
Right. Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah, I there, it's funny. We hear in all these clips and dating shows about emotional intelligence. And you really do, for men and women, have to have a certain level of emotional and, excuse me, a high level, I would think, because I can only imagine that sort of life isn't for the weak when it comes to relationships.
it's not even for the strong. People emotions get involved. People, we can't pretend that we don't have emotions.
Right.
Okay, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm a very emotionally intelligent person, but even once in a while, I do get like, you mind and you doing this and do that. It's about respect to me. At the end of the day, it's
Mm,
about respect. I'd rather you not disrespect me and play me in my face. That's my thing. But that's an emotion. If
right.
you, I already know what you're doing. Why are you going about it the wrong way?
Right.
Type of thing.
Well, I,
So it's still, we have emotions. We
right.
never gonna stop having emotions.
Right.
But
I
it's
agree.
just certain levels. Like, some girls you might not worry about, and some girls you have high regard about, because it's always somebody looking, look at what she got versus what
Right.
I got, type of thing.
Right, right. No, I agree with you. I don't necessarily mean they don't have emotions, but I would think again, you would have to have first of self a very good understanding of yourself, your emotions, how you deal with process things, but also not to be afraid to articulate those to your partner, especially in a situation, and vice versa. But also, I would think you need to be in your position where okay, you're able to really receive the feelings and emotions of your partner in these situations simply because this is you will have now have a dynamic where it's not just you and them. You are now bringing maybe this isn't the best word, but the baggage of dealing with other partners into your relationship. Because whether they're
Yeah.
directly in there or not, that's going to have that emotional toll um is going to have excuse me that emotional attachment is going to come back into your relationship. And again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing or whatnot. I'm just simply saying that hey, that's there. These
Right.
partners mean typically that they're involved with these people, not just necessarily sex with these people. That could be the case as well. But a lot of times when I hear about polyamory relationships, it is, a woman having multiple partners, multiple boyfriends, or, vice versa. Or like when I talked about my colleague, him and his wife, and they both have partners, and I think she only deals with girls. I don't know. I'm not sure. I didn't ask those
Mm.
sort of questions. But they clearly have relationships with other people. And we're human beings, those relationships in some way, shape, or form are going to bleed into the main relationship. So I
Right.
would think you have to be at the point where, again, that we always come back to communication because really that's what it comes down to in every single instance. You really need to be able to communicate and articulate how you feel and your perspective to your partner. Whether or not I want to say emotions about or whether or not it is maybe inflated because of the situation. Who knows? But it really needs to be a communication and understanding of your own emotions. For instance, I have a friend who they were in a polyamorous relationship. They had two partners and they still did things on the side with established protocols. They got permission from both of their partners before they did anything outside.
Mm.
So both partners were aware of anything that they did. And they didn't do it unless both partners gave permission. And they
Right.
were very upfront. and clear with this is what was happening. This is what like it hearing that dynamic, I was like, one, I was like, wow, the fact that both of these individuals were like two totally different people. They just went to, first get permission to do this. Both of them were cool with it. Both of them, if they had any issues, addressed the issues
Mm,
with the individual. Um, like that sort of communication was amazing to me.
yeah,
Because it was so honest and raw. And the fact that, again, I don't know how they did it. Like they're dealing with two totally different individuals, but they were maintaining relationships with both of them. And this is why I say, and again, a lot is because of just conversation, whatnot. Both of those individuals were totally different. And I mean, like totally different. So even their connection with each person was different and on different levels and in different ways. And that's why I even go back to the original point I was making. I understand now, especially being an older person, that we connect with people in different ways and on different levels. And that's
right.
where I come back to where I can understand how being in polyamorous relationships can work. And one of the things I will say is that, and I think even as far as my own growth in the whole topic and understanding and listening, like back in the day, I'm like, oh, like I understood more so a man having multiple female partners. And this is I was looking more so to multiple wives sort of aspect than a woman having multiple husbands. Uh
Mm. Like
simply
polygamy.
yeah. Yeah. And I was looking at it more toward that way back then because I only looked at it as okay in a marriage and multiple whatnot. And even now I think it's still more I get the multiple wives thing more than multiple husbands, only because, typically in that
Because
case,
you're looking at a man's point of view. That's why.
I'm looking at a man's point of view, but I'm also looking at that whole provide and protect and supporting thing. And
Hmm.
I'm thinking if a man is in that situation, again, I am looking at a man's point of view, but if a man is in that situation, then I would assume that he's in a position where he can provide and protect for two, three, four women.
And that's the
Possibly.
key, what you just said.
Yeah.
That is the key of it. Because you have to be able to do that.
Yeah.
We still, like, regardless of what the internet's telling you, regardless of how your mama took care of you, you never had your daddy, regardless of any of that, nature still plays the part.
Right.
Lest we still primal creatures. We still mammal creatures. We're still from the caveman DNA creatures. Let's not forget natural order.
Right.
We still, regardless of what we say, we still want natural order.
Right.
You want me to submit to you, you have to show me that you're a leader, a
Mhm.
provider, and a protector. Period. Period. Dot, 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 dot. You cannot be in a poly relationship. And this is just my opinion. This might be controversial because of whatever, but I am not submitting to no man that is not providing for me, protecting me, and show me any sort of leadership skills. You telling me you want me to sit at home for you while you are doing your little thing and I'm still taking care of myself, my bills, and all my stuff? No. Because now it's like you even want to see me as an equal, that I get to do what I want, or are you going to be the provider, protector, the leader so I can naturally, as a woman, submit to you? I submit to men who showed me leadership. Period. But dot 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 dot. There's nothing beyond than that. I am still a woman. I still have needs. I still have natural orders for me. Subconsciously, consciously, whatever. I submit to a man that shows me those things all the time, every single day. If I see you worth it, just like if you see me worth it, we're going to do things and
Right.
fall in place and in line. That's just natural order. My opinion with people with poly, if you're a man that want to practice polyamory, please have all your stuff together because you can't take one woman out on a date and not take the other woman out on a date. It's getting expensive. Oh yeah, yeah, you're going to be throwing out money because everyone wants to be treated special. You can't treat someone better than you treat the other one. You bought this girl Louis Vuitton, the other girl is expecting a Bentley, a Birkin, or something. Like she is expecting something. So you have to be very conscious of that.
Right.
It gets costly when you want to play the boss.
Yep. I agree. I agree with you, especially in that aspect. I Let me phrase that. If you are polyamorous and you are not married and you're like dating multiple women and they know that and they know that they're only dating you, okay. I think that's definitely the case. I think if you have multiple wives or you're in a situation where you have your main wife and the rest of them are also your wife, yes, I think that as well. I think that if you have a wife and then you have one or two partners, I don't think that in my opinion, don't think the same be true because I think the wife should be held, it should be different standards, personally speaking. But I will say this, I don't disagree with you at the core of your argument, but I'll also ask this question. And this is not necessarily on polyamory, but is kind of based on what you said. If if you and many women feel that way,
Mm.
why are they sleeping with men who don't exhibit those traits?
Because desperation, to be honest. We women get lonely at night. Like I told you before, we petting the cat, we petting the cat. So every once in a while, our natural order, we want connection. We want the intimacy. We want a warm body besides the cat next to us. And there's some women that's strong on their being celibate, that they've been celibate for years, like decades even, that they waited for that husband to caw and release their desires.
Hmm.
And some women, it's like, I can't last a month, I can't last a week. So it just depends on the person. We will settle, women settle all the time. People settle all the time, but mostly women do settle all the time for what they can get. It's unfortunate, but like I said, with the primal instinct in all of us, women want to be kept in some form and fashion. Okay.
I
We
agree.
want we want attention, we want love, and we want affection. At the end of the day, bottom line, you give us that, we're completely happy.
Okay.
So that's just all it is.
Okay. And that's why for my mind, cannot wrap my head, I say can't wrap my head, but I see like a woman with multiple husbands as a different scenario because that woman is not charged with protecting and providing for those husbands. So in my mind, I'm like, what is the
You
purpose?
sure about that? Because some women are, but I seen a woman that had multiple husbands, and she was the main provider.
But
Now,
that's not the core. That just based on what you said, that's not a natural order of things.
it's not, but women work now, so it don't. If it works for them, maybe she found men that are more submissive than dominant. If it works out for them, then it is what it is. We can't. It's to each his own.
Oh, I'm
No,
not
it's
saying
not
it's
common. It's
right.
not common, but it's not like unrealistic either.
Oh
Women work.
no, I don't disagree with you there. Like I know it happens. I get it. I'm just saying, even based on the scenario you laid out, I can't comprehend. Not saying it
Mm.
this was like I can't comprehend because the naturally speaking, the same criteria you applied don't naturally apply to the opposite situation. I'm not saying it can't. It's just like you said, women work now, all that jazz, which is true. But even in that, and this is what I'm gonna say, and I don't think it is, but I can see somebody seeing that as a contradiction to even what you just said.
And what?
As far as some women, women are making money now. Some women want, maybe they get more submissive husbands. That's a direct contradiction to the point you were making before, as far as to me. Some people would see or could say that. There's a direct contradiction to what you were saying before, as far as
Of the natural order.
yeah, natural order and what women need and what need women
Yeah.
and this and that.
She's
I can
married
see
to
that.
3 men. She's still getting that love, attention, and affection. She probably just shows more because money is power. Let's get
Hmm.
that clear. Money shows macho-ness and that energy, like I'm the boss. So that's why a lot of these dating relationship podcasts be talking about women who got the most money are less likely to get married because you showing more power and dominance than this man. So they more intimidated by you because they thinking, oh, she's gonna control me in the whole situation. Might not be true, in some
Yeah,
parts,
because I
but
disagree with that whole premise. I
mm,
disagree with that whole premise wholeheartedly. And when they bring that up, because I have never met, let me phrase that. I have not met many men, if at all, who ever care about how much a woman makes. The only people I've ever met that have cared about how much a woman makes is women. And I have seen that when a woman, not all, because I have friends that have talked to me about certain things, but I have seen the women make it a point that they make more, not the man being
mm,
intimidated. I've seen the woman make it a point to make the man feel inferior because they make more. I've
mm,
seen that firsthand. So that's why I'm like, when people bring up those points, I'm like, any conversation I've ever had with any of my friends have never been how much she makes or care how much she makes. We're impressed when she has it, but we could care less what she has because that ain't our money.
right.
Only when that woman wants to throw it around and make it a point that she has money when you don't. That's when it becomes
Ooh,
an issue. And I also think that that's a problem we have. We're seeing the money as even kind of what's a means of dominance. It was like it's a lot more to providing, protecting than how much somebody brings in their bank account. And I think that is a larger issue as a whole in when we have these conversations about dating, because protecting, providing is not just how much what's your job and how much money you bring in. It is a whole lot more than that. And taking somebody who has been married 17 years, it is a lot more than that. And it is
yeah, it
and that's
is.
I hate that about that conversation. That's why I say even with polyamory, it's not when I see and hear these conversations, it's never about money. And that's one of the things I think that is not attractive. That I want to be polyamorous, but attractive in that I want to understand and learn about people's experiences in this, because they generally yearn for that connection with people. And while there may be intimate connections, there is a yearning for connection. And even in um, acts of submission, there's a submission because of whom that person is, not so much how much money they have. And that is part of me what fascinates me, and just like, okay, I'm listening. Like I am in awe sometimes of just the stories that people tell me of their lives and how they maneuver in their relationships in polyamory.
Yes. From what you're saying, there's some guys that are real strict on natural order. I'm a male, I'm the dominant one, I'm this, I'm that. Is that they believe if we was in the Stone Age, so with the alpha male aspect of it, these quote unquote alpha males believe in what the natural order would be.
Hmm.
They're the natural born leaders, and women are just supposed to submit. Now, as that being said, do you want me to submit or do you just want to be controlling? Okay, because there's a difference.
Yes, there is.
So, as they think of what a woman's supposed to be, her roles are, or whatever, um, you have to understand that we have a lot more. people with a lot more access and
Right.
accessibility into this world. So, like with the polyamory thing, men are visual creatures, so their eyes wander more consistently than women. So you have to know the partner that you're with and be honest with yourself. Because I have a friend now who was just a player.
Hmm.
Then he decide to be in a serious relationship with this girl. He's been miserable ever since he told me that. Cause it's like, dude, I get you trying to be mature, you're trying to settle down, you're trying to do the right thing by this woman and your family. But obviously, that's not you. It's not you. And he's not telling her to be polyamory because she probably don't even know what that is
Right.
or understand like you can have him and know that other people can have him too. Like if you like me, there's gonna be other people that like me too. You think I'm attractive, there's gonna be other people who find me attractive too. Now, of course, I'm going to move accordingly based on our relationship and our dynamic. I'm picky anyway. So
Hmm.
so nobody gotta worry about me.
Right. Right.
So, but that's also a conversation you need to have with your partner. Open communication. That's all I ask for in any aspect of a relationship, monogamy or poly. Be open, be honest, and communicate with me. You get what you want that way with me, at least. I just like because I'm so honest and transparent. I want my partner to be honest and transparent.
Right.
You get what you want if you just tell me what it is and what you need, and that's just all this.
Right.
With
I
me.
think there's something you said, at least in that scenario, and what I thought of is I, in my opinion, the scenario you brought up, I don't even know if it's so much of a polyamory thing. He sounds like he likes to chase and the quote unquote conquest, and he gets a thrill from that and not being in that, I'll say, hunter mindset.
Mm.
That may be where the misery comes from, not necessarily the having the multiple partners, because there is, as a man, there is something about seeing and being able to obtain what you want. Um, Call it conquest, call it whatever, but it sounds like it's really mostly sexual and not so much of a more of an intimate or romantic connection
I
with you.
mean, if
That's
you
my opinion.
have, like I said in the beginning, relationship is you have a connection with a person. And if you just, some things can just be sex, but some things can be a connection as well.
Right.
He had a connection. He has a girlfriend and he has a connection with another girl that's not his girlfriend. And he's miserable because he's
Mm,
trying to be right by her, his girlfriend.
right.
And but in the back of his head, he's thinking about this other girl too.
Understood. Okay. So it definitely is yeah, okay. I get it.
So
I get
yeah,
what you're saying. Yeah,
he don't
but I can
understand
see
that he
that.
can have both because he's want the other one, but he might lose the other one if trying to keep this one happy. That's the thing.
This is this is where I think we have the conversation, not you and I specifically, I think in general as a society, where we talk about monogamy and how that at times can that's a lot of pressure on a relationship. I forget the pod, or excuse me, it can be. I forget the podcast that it was with the married couple, and she was, and it was. I don't know. It was probably more context to that clip, but the clip she talked about how, um, she didn't expect certain aspects of being monogamous. She didn't expect that he wanted all day or something like that, and he's just like, yeah, I signed up to be monogamous because I wanted you, and that was a requirement for being with you. Now I'm in a situation where I'm not getting when I want, sort of thing. So it's one of those things where I honestly, I will agree with this in that aspect of it. I don't think that some women are prepared to deal with a man monogamously for the rest of their lives. And what I mean by that is, I think sometimes when we get married, women forget that men want sex. And that kind of goes to the conversation we had earlier about sexless marriages. I understand that things happen in marriages, sex drives go up and go down, but there is a forgetfulness that, hey, this man married you to have sex with only you. And if
Mm.
you are not willing to do that with him, I'm not saying he goes out and cheating anything, but don't act like that isn't a problem and that doesn't cause an issue
No,
in
you
the relationship.
absolutely right. A part of marriage is sex. It's not to say obligation, but it is a part of the
No,
contract.
no, it is. It's an
Yeah,
obligation. It's
it's a
it's
part of it.
but not just an obligation physically, it's an obligation because that grows your that's how you express your intimacy, your connectedness in many respects. Is through your sexual relationship in your marriage, in my opinion. But
Mm.
there that when that happens, it's like, okay, what do you do? How do you, but for men and women, because it's two sides of the same coin, but how do you navigate that? And I'm not saying you should shift to polyamory, but what I'm saying is in that context of monogamy, not all, but we've talked about this before. There are some who just monogamy becomes celibacy or forced celibacy.
Mm.
And there's no real conversation about it. It just kind of happens. Or again, like we said, the wife pushes that off on the side, or the husband is the case. And talking to people, and I've talked to a couple people recently who are in those situations that they're female, and they would expressing those things, and it's like the lack thereof and the lack of cognition of the partner as to how that really impacts, or even the fact that like they're so oblivious that they didn't realize this was happening and that they didn't realize that, oh, this is how it is. And again, that kind of goes back to what we're talking about as far as really understanding self and really knowing who you are and how you feel about things. But having those conversations, hearing those issues, and then on the flip side, I see polygamy. I see people in polygamous relationships. I see the conversation and the openness, and I say, I see why more and more people are doing this. I mean, because it when you're honest, it it can make sense. I'm not saying it does make sense, but I can see in today's age, and not even what you talked about as far as access and everything is very key, but just on an aspect of connections. I think one of the things you notice about me when I speak very much on connections and intimacy and a relationship aspect of it, because that's where I really come from, and kind of a lens I see things, even with others that I talk to, even with some of the adult stars. A lot of the conversation comes down to that as well. It's, yeah, while they may be doing XYZ on film, but in the other aspects of their lives, um, it is very much about connecting with other people. And that's how some of them
Yeah,
describe it. It's,
women want that
yeah,
regardless of what we do. Like, we want to feel special. That's why we go shopping, get the long nails, get the long hair, do so much alterations to our body because we want that attention. We want that affection. We want to feel special about ourselves. It's a thing women just want to do. um we still humans at the end of the day, regardless of, because men think differently. Men will never understand a woman's true deep emotion. We can have conversation about it, but if unless you experience it, you like period cramps. That's why they had a machine to show men this is what we feel when we have cramps. It's painful. A man can't last a minute with that thing on. Imagine having a whole week of it. Okay. So y'all men can never understand how the emotions that and pain that we feel on a regular basis. You can't even fathom. Um, but understand we still have emotions. We still are
Right.
people. We still are human. Just don't forget that part. We're human.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. Exactly. So I think that just in general, I think as we move forward and it's going to be an interesting next few years in many respects. But I think just
mm,
as far as in our, our general conversations, because I think you and I could both agree that the just in the past 3 years, this whole relationship conversation and conversations have gone from the extreme, and I'll say extreme in the context of um, let's say Kevin Samuels type uh blunt honesty in many respects as far as what's out there, what's not out there, both for men and women to um sort of red pill space and some of the talking points there to the sprinkle movement and some of the also just delusionalness of what we're looking for.
is
I would
that
say
sprinkle lady married?
I think she is. I don't know.
Okay.
But I think in many respects, and it was it's funny, I heard something today. This woman, I forget where it was, but basically woman, single mom, and again, nothing wrong with single moms. She I don't think she made that much, but she wanted a man that made $200,000.
Mm,
And while you can what you want, the some guy was just like come to rebuttal, like, do you know how many men make 200, like the basic
right.
statistics thing, and which I don't think is unwarranted because I think you can want what you want. Let's be for real. Do you know men that make $200,000? Can you are you what a man that makes $200,000 want? So I say that to say the delusional conversations that we were having, and then we have, some of the real conversation that we're having, where is a constantly evolving topic.
Right.
And I would say in a lot of it, it centers around monogamy,
Mm,
um, and being monogamous. And it's interesting that again, I'm not saying there aren't conversations like this when it comes to being in poly relationships and having multiple partners. I'm not saying that they aren't, but have not heard these sort of pain points pop up when people were talking about poly relationships, even with the individuals I've spoken to. Um, Money, him having to make a certain amount, he or she having to do things or look a certain way. No, even with the young lady I said that I follow on Instagram, not Instagram, TikTok. I've never ever once heard her talk about a requirement for what a potential partner has to have.
mm,
She's looking for connection. She is dating.
right. That's
And that
all that matters. None
yeah,
of that other
it
stuff
it does.
matters.
And I think that's what you hear more so when you hear people talk about polyamorous relationship. Not saying that's like a pure what a relationship is about, because that's debatable, but there is a when I hear people talk about it, there is very much a distilled conversation to where it is very much about connection and closeness and intimacy and experiencing maybe different things with people that you would not experience with another partner. And again, I'm not talking about sexually, I just mean in general. And I think that conversation is a lot more healthy when it comes to how we interact as people than the conversations we're hearing where you're getting on and I want this and I want that and I deserve this and I look this good so I should have a man that does this, or I am I'm 6 foot 10 inches, I make $200,000, I should have a woman that has this and has that. And I'm like, I don't hear that entitlement when I hear conversations about polyamory. Again,
Mm.
I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying when I have hear conversations about it online, when I have spoken to people who practice polyamory in their lives, I have never heard any air of entitlement from their main partner, if they have a main partner, or other partners.
Well, I mean, people feel entitlement in natural aspect. It don't really matter poly or not. But I hear what you're trying to say. Like monogamy is more like the standard, right, of how society picture a relationship and love should be.
Right,
Like how we see in movies, like we see in plays, like we see in reading books.
right,
A man and a woman just supposed to be together and then be happy ever after. Yeah, that's not reality.
right.
It's if the world was perfect, we all be matched up with our soulmate. But unfortunately, some people still searching for him or her, whoever.
Right,
So yeah, poly is no different from monogamy, honestly. It's just your partner is out there dating and dealing with other people. That's the only difference. Emotions still get involved, people still have
hmm
jealousy, people still have entitlement. Like you said with your friend in his marriage. You said that he's allowed her to date other people, but she's mostly dating other women.
to my
You don't know
understanding, yes.
you don't know if he set that in place.
Right,
Like you can deal with whoever you want, just make sure it's not a man.
right.
So isn't that some sort of like you feel entitled to who I'm pursuing and dating. So it's not no real big difference. People
Yeah.
still have their own
I,
rules in place.
yeah, I agree. I just think that I just in my experience there isn't that era of I should have. There may be
Mm.
rules when I'm in place, but I have not as of yet heard I should have or a partner should have or this partner should do XYZ for me if they want to date me, they want to be involved. I have not heard that yet in any conversation that I have had with anyone that
Oh,
practice
it's
polygamy.
there.
I'm
It's
I'm not
there.
saying it's not. I'm not
I
saying
know
it's
a
not.
couple people in poly currently that they have their own entitlement. They expecting the girl, and then some poly be so to me messed up because
Right.
let's not act like poly is glamorous because it's
No, no,
not.
no. I'm not. I'm not. I'm
Yeah.
just simply saying that when the conversations I hear, again, I'm looking
Mm,
at the internet, the wide world of the internet, and we know what that conversation has been like, particularly in the black community, but it really extends outside of that as well, just relationships in general. we we have heard these conversations in the past few years, and we have
mm,
heard how they have in many ways devolved. And maybe it's because a bit more glamorous, a lot more people are exploiting that than others. But when I do see things about polyamory, when I do hear people talk about polyamory, again, maybe because my some of my base information is skewed because a lot of these people that I've spoken to recently are in the adult industry, which is a whole different understanding or a whole different aspect of things. That entitlement which I see in these other spaces, I have not seen exhibited. Not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying that when the conversation comes up about their relationships, when the conversations are come up about their partners, what they're looking for partners, when I see people speak about their own experiences and what they're looking for online, it so far has not been the same. And that's the only point I'm trying to make. And I'm not saying it's not there or existing because I'm pretty sure it is. We are people, like you said. I'm only saying that in my experience, I have not seen the same sort of entitlements. I have not seen the same sort of expectations of what someone should have from a monetary standpoint, from a physical standpoint. I have not heard people articulate that when it comes to their poly relationship. And honestly, I think some of that may be because their main partner, if they have one, fits their basic requirements, fits their basic expectations for a partner, or at least at this state of their life. And maybe whomever else they're dealing with or choose to deal with brings something different to the table, so to speak. Brings different experiences, different connections, different interests, hell, different body types. Um, who knows?
Right.
So that may be part of that as well. And I'm just saying, like, there's a different conversation that people typically have when they talk about poly relationships, and it is not the same. And
Oh,
that's what I
yeah.
find so
I mean,
interesting.
I've been to a lot of lifestyle events as well. So I see all different types of relationships and dynamics of them just being more sexually open
Hmm.
to their desires and needs and their awareness.
Right,
Um, so yeah, it's never cut and dry. It's
right,
not always perfect
right,
at all. It can get very messy, especially it has to be a mutual understanding across the board
right. Exactly.
of exactly what y'all doing and what's going on. Now, you said in the Black community, the only difference between our community and the other community is they call it polygamy. They usually marry these women. They have their own setup. They was raised into it because there's shows that's raised sister wives,
Right,
that how they was groomed literally to be this man's wife and to be able to understand that your man, your husband, is going to have multiple partners. But you still have the title of wife, you still have a roof over head, he's still going to provide and protect you and give you your needs as a woman.
right,
Um, it's no difference from the 18th centuries and the kings and the queens. And, we have evolved, but still DNA wise, we still have these wants and needs. Like a man, they horny. They want that release. And they go about it the wrong way, some of these men, to get the release. But still, in their natural order is to throw the hunt. It's still I need that sensation type of thing. Because what y'all do produce but y'all produce sperm like every 5 seconds or something. So it's like everything's just a natural order for people to understand this by a scientific level. It's
right,
not that I'm just saying these things or saying these things. There's facts behind it if you
right,
actually look it up.
right,
So I'm just more realistic to it. Like I can do both. I can be monogamous, I can be poly if the person's worth it. If it's worth it, then what's the problem? To me.
I agree with you. I think, and I don't know if you familiar with Black Mirror, but I forget somebody put me on this episode because I hadn't watched the full season of Black Mirror in a while. I don't, as I told you before, I don't watch too much TV as it is in the past few years. But there's an episode called, I believe it's Fighting Vipers. Anthony Mackie and I in my head I see his name, but I will butcher it. But it's the guy who played Black Manta. He was the new Candyman, or also R.I.P. Tony Todd. Um, uh, that episode really, I think, challenges our perception of not just sex and sexuality, but also connection and how we
Mm.
connect to people. And at the end of the day, the episode, I'm not going to spoil it, but you see Anthony Mackie and his wife and what's her name? Bahari, I forget her name. She was on Sleepy Hollow on Fox way back when I forget her full name. But just through the course of events of the episode, you see them both struggling for connection.
Mm.
And in some ways, um, through the course of the episode, you see, I'll just say connections maybe being found in other ways, and I'll put it that way because I don't want to spoil it because it's a
Is
very
this the
good.
one when he's in a video game?
Yes, you saw it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, all right, all right. Yeah, that was
That's old. Like what you be spoiled? Like that been out for
look, I hadn't
years.
seen look, a friend of mine told me to watch it maybe about a month or two ago.
Oh
because they
no,
had just seen it.
that's years
Yeah. Oh,
old.
I
Like,
know it. Like I said, I haven't watched. And I think that that that's that speaks very much to our yearning for connection and
yes,
maybe a
yes.
different connection or find a connection in places where we least likely think it is.
Mm,
But because even with the video game, it's like it's that unto itself challenges thoughts on sex and sexuality. Um,
mm,
but also again reinforces that connection we have to people. And
right.
even both of them found or looked for connections in other ways, but still, at least based on how it ended, were very much together and very much understood. Again, this is when we go back to the other points communication. There was an honesty there, there was a understanding of each other, and there was permission from both based on what they were going to do and how they were finding connection. So I think that as we draw to the end of this, Vern, we always keep coming back to the concepts of communication and
Yes.
communication with partners, in this case, partners or your partner,
Mm,
to really, I would say, have a good understanding of your relationship and relationship dynamic, and also what your needs are.
right.
And it's funny as I don't think it's funny. I just think it's funny as in ha. I think it's funny as in it's very interesting that we talk about all these different topics when it comes to relationships, men and women, sex, sexuality, what have you. But at the end of the day, it always comes down back to communication and really
Yes. I
articulating,
love communication. If
yeah,
you could
what it is.
communicate and tell me exactly what it is that you want,
Right.
best believe if I'm with it, you're going to get it.
Not
It's
even that.
that simple.
Not in how you feel as well. I
Hmm.
think being able to articulate how you feel, where you are, what's going on inside. And again, we talk about, emotional intelligence. And honestly, I hate it when that's brought up because no offense. I think there are a lot of women who don't articulate their feelings well.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That don't
Men
articulate their
too.
feelings well.
Men
Yeah, no,
too.
I know we don't. That's
No.
what I'm saying. I am not like I know the man I am at 46 when it comes to articulating myself, my needs, my emotions is not the same man I was at 26. That's
Mm,
a fact.
mm,
So I know this. And that's what I
mm.
say, us as men, but also you got to think
That's deep. That's
we
deep
are
what you just
trained
said.
not to speak. We are trained not to communicate. And I think
Mm.
that's a bigger difference there. Um, because when we do, it gets used against us. And we've talked before, and I told you
That's the
there
only reason, that's the only reason why y'all don't communicate because you think it's really going to be used against you.
because it has. It starts from our mother.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
it
that's true.
unfortunately it
If you
starts from
make
our
her
mother.
mad, then yeah, it's going to be used against you because we got
Yeah,
to use our only tool we can use
but
is
you're told,
information.
but you're also told don't cry because you're gonna be a punk. Don't be soft like we and oh dads do that, but let me tell you, I've seen my dad emotional over the years, maybe more so as an adult, but so I remember him being emotional being younger. It was my mother who reinforced the stereotypes of quote unquote masculinity, of not communicating, of not opening up, of not crying, of not don't do this, you'll be a sissy. Like
Mm,
I heard those things from my mother, and I think a lot of men in general, and I'll go to a black man because I'll tell you straight up, talk to any one of my friends, for most of them, 90% of them, they would have similar stories about growing up and
yeah.
what they were told and how they were told not to communicate. So we're then bringing that into our adult lives, into our interpersonal relationships with women, and then we don't communicate because we're told to do. And then we do communicate when we do open up, when we are vulnerable. 9 times out of 10, At some point in time, it is used against us in anger. And like I told you, I have experienced that pretty much in every, except maybe one, in every interpersonal relationship I've had with a female since 1997.
Mm,
Every single one. There's been at least one instance where my vulnerability was used against me in anger.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's why I say that we are trained and conditioned not to communicate, not to open up. And
And
honestly,
I'm sure once it gets that information out, it hurts y'all ego and pride, right?
it's not ego and pride. It's a I was open and honest with you. I don't feel safe with you anymore. It's not a pride
Mm,
thing. It's a I'm not safe with you. I'm going to continue to do what I do because you're my woman, but I don't feel safe with you. I can't be myself with you. That's what that comes down to. But I go to
mm.
the point as far as the in communicating. Um, we have to work past that to get to a point where we can communicate, we can articulate, where we are in touch with ourselves, so where we can articulate what our wants, needs, and desires are past just getting between your legs, those primal instincts. But we also have to be at a place where you are able to receive it and not receive it as a way of weaponizing it, but actually to allow us to be vulnerable with you and to be safe and vice versa. And that's why I think that when we talk about when I have these conversations, I hear about polygamy, excuse me, these relationships where people are practicing polygamy and multiple partners, there is a safeness there because there is a communication that the husband and the wife, in this case, when they have, they're married and have multiple partners, but there's a communication there. And in that communication, because you are speaking on something that is so intimate, there's a vulnerability. And so both people have an equal exchange of vulnerability. So I can understand a safeness being there, and which is,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
no, that's our weapon. That's
yeah.
honestly our, because we will cry. We will cry and be emotional. And we just think, I want him to feel the same pain that I'm feeling. That's just what it is. It's unfortunate because, I mean, yes, that happens, but it's no difference from a guy calling you fat.
No,
Like, and yeah,
that is
you
not
got
the
some
same.
rolls, but you calling me fat, that still hurts my feelings.
But it is not the same. That's
Why
something
is it
you're
not?
insecure. That is something you're insecure about. That is not me revealing
So
some
me
childhood.
using the information you told me and back at you in a vindictive way is not, what is it? If you're saying it's not to hurt the ego and pride, and it's not insecurities
Be-
as well, you
No,
just
that's
saying it's
vulnerability. That's not insecurity. That's vulnerability. That's me being vulnerable.
mm,
Somebody perceiving you as fat. And again, Ren, you're a voluptuous woman. Somebody can see you as fat though. And but that's
mhm.
an optical thing. That's a state of your being and a perception. That is not you telling me of your case in point. Um, in college. Can't believe I'm about to say this, but to give you an example.
Okay.
My parents divorced when I was younger. My I think they officially the divorce fine when I was 10, but when I was 8 is when we first time we were living without my father. So I always had this sort of unstructured relationship with my father. I love my dad to death. And as a man, married, offspring, I get a lot of what he dealt with then. Now,
Mm,
then I didn't. So I dealt a lot emotionally with my father not being in the aspect that I needed him to, especially going through high school. And going through college, I had a lot of, I want to say, I had some animosity in that regard. The young woman who I was dating, whom let's just say, um, the young woman whom I dated and ultimately gave something very special to, we had broken up. And I remember we were having a conversation and I was leaving her place. And I was about maybe 60 feet away from her door, from her room door to the front door. And this is someone who I communicated about, my issues with my dad and how I was feeling, this and that.
Mm,
She then communicated to me because she was angry. That's why you're a bastard like your father.
mm, 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 mm.
Those are the
Yeah,
sort of things
that's
that we,
terrible.
but those are the sort of things that we talk about when we talk about not opening up. That's what I say
No,
is
I
not
get
just,
it. I get
yeah,
it. That's a low blow.
right. It
That's
was.
terrible.
It was.
That's
And at that moment
awful.
I understood why some men cannot control themselves.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I understand that because yes, you right. It's like today I'm playing cards with a friend, a coworker of mine, and he was upset. And
Hmm.
I kept asking him, why are you upset? And he wouldn't say nothing, but you could tell he was upset. And I'm just like, what's going on? I know in the back of his head, it's like, I should be a man. I can't express feelings or emotions and this, that, and the third. Is like, but it's killing you. Like I can see the rage in your face. It looks like you about to explode. I'd rather you talk about it than,
Right.
having an incident that because you
Right.
couldn't express your feelings in a proper, comfortable space,
Right.
that now all that bottle up energy is becoming negative energy. And
Right.
now you have an outbursts. Now you angry. Now you frustrated. You doing all this stuff. Yeah, I rather you just tell me what the problem is than to have all that. But I get it. You're right because it is most likely can be a risk that is going to be used against you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's very unfortunate. Like I feel bad right now because it's like I wish I could help people like that. But sometimes you gotta let people just realize things on their own.
Yeah. Yeah. But again, communication, and I think with any relationship, but it's any relationship, I want to say, especially if you're practicing polyamory, communication and knowing yourself and knowing who you are going to be key to a successful relationship in general, and being open and as honest as possible. And it seems like those in polyamorous relationships, they have a different understanding of open and honest considering
Yes.
the situation. But
Yes.
Ren, we're gonna wrap this up. Tell everybody where they can find you.
You can follow me on Instagram, Silly_Weaver. You can also follow me on Facebook on Ren Graves. Thank you, Webster, as
All
always,
right.
and
Thank you, Ren.
y'all have a good one. Thank
All right.
you.
Appreciate you guys. You know where you are. Find more lovely Ren and all of those links there. Well, actually, you'll see them after this ends. But thanks for checking us out. Web Solomon with Fragrance. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Well, hello, hello, baby. This is your lovely Misty Stone, and you are watching Webster Style with me.
That's great. Let's go. Yeah, I got Ted.
What anime are you going to be watching?